guys, what's up? It's GVKcollectibles, and you know what day it is? It is Monday, so that means it is Mythical Mountain Monday, where I basically go through some of my favorite comics that I read from the past week. And I got quite a bit of stuff, so let me show you the pile. I actually think there's a few variants in here, of course, but anyway, I have to go over some of the ones that that didn't make quite the list. Unfortunately, I didn't get the chance to read the DC Pride, aka the LGBTQ comic book this week. Just because I didn't have enough time. I didn't have enough time to do it. But I'm pretty sure that would have been one of my top ones. Of course, and I read like a bunch of other stuff. I thought a lot of the X-Men stuff and the X-Men and Excalibur were cool, but there wasn't really relatively noteworthy. I mean, there was some cool stuff going on in Excalibur, but with really X-Men, there's like a few cool moments. They introduced a new X-Men team that's going to be introduced with the #1, the relaunch of the series, of course, and Joker was really cool too. Really, it's kind of a continuation of what happened at the end, and it kind of like you're wondering where is this going to go lead now. So, but anyway, let's get into my top 5 picks for this week. So, #1, I think I would have to say. Also, another one that I think I really liked, War of the Bounty Hunters, really just continues the kind of the series as a whole, because like now we know Crimson Dawn is back, and there's a cool moment with Valance and Chewie where they kind of have a mutual respect, because like a mutual agreement, they fight, but there's a lot of cool comedy within the issue, because especially like Dengar doesn't want to get involved because like he got his ass beat by Chewie in the original Star Wars run, so it's really funny, and it just kind of continues. There really isn't too, it has information we already know. I don't think we're gonna have anything really till next month that continues the story along, but you just get all these side stories. But the first comic I want to jump into is Red Sonja 1982. This is done by Amy Chu, and I gotta say, I like this a lot more than Sonja Vampirella 1992. It's really cool because it has a weird kind of interesting plot of where we don't know where this is kind of going. You have these aliens that are in control of this robot. They basically sent this robot back in time to kill Red Sonja. For what reason, we have no idea. But it is really cool because they get into a fight. There's some Terminator shenanigans here and there, which is really fun. But there's a sorcerer that essentially traps Sonja in the sword. Then the place collapses on fire. Then it passes a few centuries until 1982, of course. And it's really funny because eventually the sword falls into like this studio guy's hands. Then eventually out of nowhere, that's like at this film studio that's filming a scene, and all of a sudden Red Sonja shows up and kind of just shows up, the actress who is supposed to be the lead, but then you have these cool fun adventures of just Red Sonja just being in a movie. And it's like she doesn't know, nobody really knows, she can't really speak, because I think that's a cool thing that they always do, is while Red Sonja is in her time period, you can understand what she's saying, but if it's like in a modern era, like, or era that we're like in the modern day, we can't understand her because of her English, like her language. English would be a little bit broken in comparison, which is very interesting, but it is really fun. Like, the book in just general is just fun. It's essentially just Terminator Red Sonja, kind of, with a few other elements here and there. But it's just fun. I mean, it's goofy. It isn't like it isn't taken as serious as like say like the main series or anything. Which, like, I think that's the best thing about these these one shots. They're not meant to be seriously. I just had a fun time and I enjoyed it a lot. Of just Red Sonja going through the 80s, essentially. I don't know if this story is going to continue. I know Dynamite is actually doing the Red Sonja Black and White, which is Red, Black, and White, I believe, which is kind of like the Batman Black and White book, where it's just a series of different stories, which I think is really cool, and I'm actually kind of glad those kind of books are picking up again. So I enjoyed this one. This is just a fun one that I really enjoyed. Nothing really too much else to say. It's just Sonja going through the 80s, and it's fun, and it's a beautiful, like I think I forgot to mention, it's just a beautiful cover. Like, look at that. That is such a pretty cover. So, the next comic that I really enjoyed was was Wonder Woman. This is actually the conclusion of the kind of Valhalla story arc, at least an Asgard storyline for the book. And I gotta say, this is just a fun book. Like, it is Michael and W. Conrad and Becky Clooney, they do an amazing job with the story. The art by Travis Moore, and of course the colors by Tamara Bonneville are just fun. So basically, what it ends up to, it continues off where the last issue ends, where Wonder Woman arrives at the house of the Valkyries, and basically the Valkyries are kind of like, well, we're sick of doing what we're doing, like, and bringing souls back, because, like, people are, because they're just sick of, like, dealing with the fighting and everything. But what they eventually learn is that then, like, and Diana's trying to convince them not to basically not abandon their responsibilities. But then, of course, Thor shores up and just kind of crashes the party, and he's like, and she's like, I can't believe this dude. But it's actually really fun, because Wonder Woman just kicks Thor's ass and uses Mjolnir, I guess, or his hammer. They call it just a hammer. It's not necessarily called Mjolnir, but it's really funny. But then there's a point where the main kind of one who's kind of controlling the Asgardians with all these enchanted weapons, Dr. Psycho, of course, which was revealed a few issues ago, they actually get to the Mind Plane. And it was so funny when I was reading this, because I was reading it within the Dr. Psycho voice from the Harley Quinn show, so it was really funny. It was a fun way to end this kind of story arc. Deadman eventually comes and picks Dr. Psycho's ass up, and because there's shit going down at Olympus. But eventually, after that, Thor and the Warriors talk, but then they realize that the tree, of life, essentially, needs the warrior's blood to be able to stay alive, essentially. And since it's like they're on, like, they can never really die within this realm, it essentially feeds the tree, and that's what's kind of denying the tree is kind of dying because of this. But then they have this it's resolved, essentially, which is really cool. And then we eventually get Steinfeld, who's back again, which is really cool. Really cool. And kind of the love interest of this book, I don't know what the deal with, like, if she's still with Steve Trevor, but at this point we don't know. So Diana's kind of like, it's really cool. So Steinfeld and her kind of have a thing together. But then we eventually go, and it actually ends with, like, her arriving at Olympus, and shit's on fire, so it's like, it kind of is going to launch into the next kind of story arc for Wonder Woman. And of course, there was the backup, too. I'm not really a fan of these backups, not necessarily to say that I don't think they're bad or anything, it's just, these are personally, the backup stories for Wonder Woman are not my thing, so I only kind of quickly skim through it. But, like, I gotta say, the art is really cool. And the writing is really fun. It's kind of these short stories, I think, would be, if you have a kid who's wanting to get into Wonder Woman, I think these backup stories would be perfect for them, because it kind of introduces, like, it follows a young Diana, essentially, which is really interesting. So yeah, Wonder Woman number 773, I think this is, it was a really fun way to end the arc. I loved all the stuff having to do with Valhalla and the Asgardians, and Thor. It was really cool to see Wonder Woman beat up Thor, and this Thor is more kind of in line with the Norse mythology version, as opposed to the MC, like the Marvel version everybody's familiar with. So yeah, I really enjoyed Wonder Woman 773. So, with the next comic in the series, I mean within within my picks, was Detective Comics number 1037. This is a really cool issue. Tanamaki continues to do such a great job with this book, and we actually eventually learn that Linda has been killed. We don't know why or how, but, like, all that we know is Bruce Wayne is a oh god, what is it? He is the main suspect. And of course, somebody, Mr. Worth, who is the kind of one of the side villains, I guess, and side villains in this book, essentially, because he is related to Sarah Worth, who died at the very beginning of Detective Comics. I think 10/3, I can't remember, 10/27, I believe, 10/27, or no, 10, a few issues ago, I should say. And basically he's accusing Wayne killed his daughter, which, like, we know that as a fact is completely false. But we do eventually learn who the hell is killing all these people who are dying in the kind of mysterious ways, and it is the mayor's assistant, who is kind of like this xenomorph-esque thing. We don't know who exactly he is, so it is very interesting to see where this will follow. But overall, it's actually really, really cool, because eventually Bruce is locked in a police precinct by himself, and this basically just to show Worth paid them off to basically get away from the precinct and to basically kill Wayne, essentially, even though there is no evidence to suggest that Wayne did kill Sarah, but it is looking like that. And it was really, really cool. And you get this really, really cool moment of where Bruce is just, like, he survives a wreck and he's just getting chased by Mr. Worth, who is just this, the art does a really, really good job of portraying this dude as, like, a big, scary, hulking dude. And also, we eventually learn who, Vile, that's who is the mayor's assistant. He's the one who's killing people because he is this kind of weird, kind of predator xenomorph mouth. But it is really, really cool. The story does contain a few backups, including following one of the side characters, Debbie Donovan, who is, like, kind of this writer, which is very, very interesting. It kind of gets her point of view of, like, the rich and famous in Gotham. And we also get a cool story with written by John Riley, who's writing the Second Son book. So it is very, very interesting. The camera is about to cut off, so I will continue. We'll finish off my thoughts with Detective Comics 1037 in a minute. Hey guys, I'm back. As I said, so there is a cool story with written by John Ridley. It focuses on Lucius Fox, his beginning working with Batman. So it is very interesting, and it's kind of cool to see that we got two backups in this issue. So it is really, really cool. Also, another thing too is, like the previous issue, Huntress is working with, because I don't think I mentioned it, because Huntress is working with Batman, because also one of her friends, one of her people she was trying to make friends with, passed away, was killed because of this, assumingly Vile, who is going to be, who we know is the main dude. Granted, Batman and everybody doesn't know it yet. But I am very excited to see where this story goes, especially with the Mr. Worth and everything. I think he's an interesting villain. Like, he is kind of like he's an interesting villain, and he's kind of like the antithesis to what Bruce is, where they both are they come from older families from Gotham, like, so they're considered old money. So it is very interesting to see where the story goes. I am very excited to see where this story goes, because I've been loving Detective Comics ever since Tamanaki took over the book, because I think it's just been fantastic. So, my number 2 recommendation is the sequel to Dynamite. It is Dynamite Lives. Dynamite was a fun book. It was just Dynamite essentially doing what they do with crossovers and say, hey, let's bring all these characters that we have and own and to do a crossover. And this one I just love because it continues off the series, but it follows Ash from Evil Dead, precisely Army of Darkness Ash, because he works at S-Mart and everything. So it is really, really cool. And the majority of the issue is just Ash kicking ass, killing these zombies, which is really, really cool. And he's going to be the main fixture of this new team. We eventually kind of learn that they escape our few characters that did survive the first series retreat to this in this unique area. And Taboo, Vampirella, and God, forget what her name is, but it's the old lady who basically has survived to but it is very, I'm just sorry, it's like kind of unique place. But when we eventually learned Dracula has fallen too of the undead plague, so it is going to be very interesting to see. As I said, the big majority of the issue and story is Ash just kicking ass, killing deadites and everything, killing these zombies essentially. So it is very interesting to see where this goes. And of course, we know Red Sonja is now kind of the herald of this army, and it's actually funny because Ash references Army of Darkness too, which I think is really, really cool. Then eventually at the end of the book, Arnie is picked up by this woman in black. I don't know who this character is, so for me, I'm like, I don't know who this character is, so I'm going to be excited to see where it goes from there. But yeah, I mean, Dynamite Lives is just a fun book. Like, I think it's not too hard to think of. It's just enjoyable. It's just a fun zombie book, which is kind of what you want, and especially introduce, like, I was kind of shocked that they didn't introduce Ash in the first part of the series with Dynamite. So I am excited to see where this continues. I'm excited to see what kind of undead hijinks go on. So it should be fun. As I said, my number 2 recommendation is Dynamite Lives. So that leaves us down to my number 1 recommendation, and my number 1 recommendation is The Good Asian number 2. This book in general is just really, really cool and really, really fun. So it kind of continues off with the last issue of where we find Edison Hark eventually finds that dead body, and unfortunately the kid is arrested and is kind of handcuffed, which is kind of sad, because and O'Malley kind of being an asshole to Edison, because but it is interesting because we do meet up with Terrence Chang, who he has like a meeting with this kind of this businessman, Asian businessman, and he's also kind of essentially, it is very interesting because there's a lot of things that I can't necessarily from my own experience pull from this book. So if you but basically there is a divide there. They both kind of don't like each other just because like how Terrence is kind of like being not a token to say, not being a token, but kind of like essentially not getting rid of his heritage or anything, just like kind of just trying to act like an American essentially, and it is very interesting because we see all this, and of course we learn about this a Hatchet Man, kind of like this tale who kills all these gang members, but unfortunately we know. And we don't know how this is ultimately connected to Harkin's main story of trying to find Ivy Chen. But it is really, really cool because we do eventually get to this cool, like, nightclub, the Jade Castle, which is actually, the Jade Castle itself is not based off a actual, like, nightclub back in the day. But it is, there was a cool thing, I think, with this book, too, which I'll mention at the end. But we eventually there is an assassination attempt on Terrence, but unfortunately, and it's really, really cool because we do get an action scene. Edison tries to fight this dude off, and it's like, and he says, of course, and he's just like kicking, the dude who is the attacker is just kicking him, and he's like, of course, can I just meet one Chinaman who puts up his dukes, which is really, really funny to me. But he eventually gets an axe to the shoulder, which is really, really hard, but then because eventually at the end of that, Harkin's trying to chase down this criminal, but unfortunately he runs into Victoria, who is one of the Caraway's youngest daughter, and essentially they freaking hate each other. Mainly Victoria hates Edison a lot, but we kind of learn that there's something more to the Ivy's disappearance, and we kind of think that maybe Mason isn't who he says he is, and we eventually learn at the end of this issue there is a huge bombshell of even Mason Carnaway knows what happened to Edison's mother, which is something that we don't know completely yet. So I'm very interested to see where this goes for the future of the series. This is, I think, like a 10-issue or 12-issue series, so it is a kind of like a mini-series. Very much in line with the Swamp Thing book. But it is really, really cool. And there's actually a cool thing of where the writer actually talks about the history of Chinese immigration and the Inclusion Act on Angel's Island. And it's really, really fascinating too, to kind of learn and to see what the struggles were, and especially you also get to learn about what is called the Chop Suey Circus, which was a collection of nightclubs that were run by Chinese immigrants who mainly employed that were kind of like nightclubs, and they became very popular. So it's really cool to see kind of the inside of the series of what was going on at the time, which is really cool. Like, I continuously I really like this book because of that, of where it's so well it's so well inserted into this kind of history that I really don't know, and it's cool for me to kind of learn those things and understand of like what people had, like what Chinese immigrants had to go through to come here, because I don't know that. I was born in America, so it's like I truly don't know that. But it is a really fun book, really cool. It's a very cool neo-noir book, which I love. I am very interested to see where the story goes, but that is definitely my number one recommendation is The Good Asian. And with that being said, with the recap, we had Wonder Woman 773, Red Sonja 1982, we had Detective Comics 1037, Dynamite Lives number 1, and The Good Asian number 2. So those were my top recommendations for the previous week. So yeah, that's it. That's Mythical Mountain Monday, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you make sure to hit like and subscribe, hit the little bell notification so you get notified when we upload Mythical Mountain Mondays, What's in the Box Wednesdays, Figure Fridays, all that kind of jazz, all the fun little things too. You also make sure to check us out on our Instagram pages. All will be down below. Me, GVKcollectibles, and my brother Jack's Pop Guy. Also check me out on Facebook as well. And also check us out on our Mercaris. Those will be in the links too. So with that being said, I hope you guys have a great beginning to your week. And hopefully, like, if you guys are on summer break, if you are, hopefully have some fun and be safe while doing it. So with that being said, peace, y'all.